Did you pack a swimsuit? Dip said intently to Will from across the trailer. You asked about that already, and I did, so stop asking about it. Will said back, annoyed from the rising tension that had been brewing for the last 3 hours. Well, you told me you put sunscreen in the large backpack. I unpacked everything from it looking for it, and never found it. So I really do need to ask twice about this. Dip scowled back at him. Asshole, Will said under his breath, Dip hearing it faintly and rolling his eyes, now moving back to checking inventory that had been laid out on his bed. 4 sleeping bags, 2 tents, 1 portable grill, 3 fishing poles. A buzz then went in my pocket and I pulled out my flip phone. Yes, flip phone, the most advanced technology back in the 90s, reading the name Hannah, who had just messaged me. I unlocked the phone, navigating to her message and then proceedingly opening the door of the trailer home, seeing her car parked next to Dip's SUV. You sure my car will be safe here over the weekend? She asked me. Yeah, this place is totally safe. Sure, the homes aren't the nicest, and the usual pothead wanders around at 1, but we don't have any reports of people breaking into cars or houses. I replied to her, assuring this 3-day trip would be a good idea. AM or PM, she asked me. For what? I responded to her. AM or PM for when the pothead lurks around. She asked, giving more details. I smiled to her. I say both time periods. They don't really follow a strict schedule. She smiled, then went up to me and kissing me on the cheek, a convenient spot and a place she marked for herself. Possibly from the 100th time she kissed that exact spot within the span of 3 months. She then walked inside the trailer, Dip greeting her and then immediately yelling again at Will, who complained back to him. I stood right out front, staring at the cloudless sky, knowing the weather would be perfect for a little retreat. It was Dip's idea to begin with. A 3-day weekend in a June month, camping out at a place for some relaxation. This would have been the farthest distance we would have traveled since 5 or 6 months, with the last long-distance trip was Perry dropping us off on our new home. I thought about him, Alos, knowing Will still had thoughts about him. I then thought about my parents, my abrupt departure from my home, knowing they thought I was lost, but the risk of reconnecting being too strong. I just wish they knew how much I miss them. Love you, Dad. Love you, Mom. I need your help in here, Nick. Stop staring at the ants outside and carry these things to the car. I heard Dip call from outside, walking into the house and seeing at him point at the tents. I grabbed each one with one hand, an impressive task if they were already built, but weighing 30 pounds and being the size of a duffel bag folded up, it was not much different than moving airport luggage. I walked outside, Hannah following me and making the comment, "We get our own tent, right? Now dropping the packed tents in." Yes, that was my biggest deal with Dip when he talked about this. She smiled, then asking, "You think it will be a good trip for Will? You think you can catch a lot for him?" I smiled, knowing that she had cared about my sometimes stupid brother whom she worked with, answering, "It's his first fish trip ever. He didn't even know what it was when I brought it up to him. Dip had to buy a pole and act it out like it was a charades game for him to understand. So I think if we catch one fish, it would be a successful trip." We left nearly an hour later, with Will making another complaint to Dip on why they have to share a tent together. Dip's response was simple, so me and Hannah can do the same thing we've been doing together on our late-night movie trips. I had thanked Dip also many times for setting it up, more times than I could count on my excited hands. The drive to Lake Ocho was about 5 hours, passing through most of Iowa before coming close to its border. Dip then backed into our campsite, which was set 10 feet from a public road, and then another 10 feet was a public sand beach where I believe half of our days would be spent. I got out excited, then moving to the back of the car and pulling out the tent, ready to get it set up. I spent 30 minutes with Hannah setting it up, Dip and Will catching up with us in time frame even though they started 5 minutes later. After moving my suitcase and other supplies into the tent, I got changed into a swimsuit. Me and Hannah switching out of the tent for privacy, then jogged over to the lake. The water was warm, surprising for how north we were, but also crystal clear like glass. I dove in, myself pushing myself against the soft sand bottom out while Hannah walked in stunningly. So stunningly, I didn't even notice Will, who was running behind her, now kicking up the water and bumping into her side, causing her to fall in. Will then leapt out toward me, screaming, "Boom!" which I guess was the word he used for cannonball, causing waves to push up against me. I spit some water out, myself seeing Hannah annoyed at the little child of my brother, then seeing him rise his head up for air, a little smirk on his face. "This is fun," he said, myself instantly forgiving him, knowing this is probably the first time he's ever swum at a lake. Hannah then came out, "Father, I think Will getting her hair and general body wet, warming her up to the idea of joining us." We all now sat in a circle, our feet paddling underneath as Dip pulled a lawn chair out and placed it onto the sand, watching from afar with a book opened in front of him. We swam together for another 2 hours before stars started to sprinkle on the lake waves, signaling us it was time to settle in for the night. By this time, Dip had already left, having built a fire with a couple of hamburgers already cooked waiting for us. "Thank you," the three of us said in unison, grabbing the plate he had made for everyone then sitting around the fire. Dip then said to the group, "S'mores are in the car, passenger side." Will left immediately, only knowing of s'mores from a survival game he played. He pulled out the bag of marshmallows, then grabbed a stick of the ground, inserting and putting the mellow out which roasted for 4 minutes before he pulled it back, then leaving and coming back with a fully intact s'more. I smiled, watching him eat his creation and from his expression knowing it was worth it for him. Will probably had 7 more s'mores after that, with Dip having to intervene so he wouldn't get sick. Me and Hannah both respectably having 2 ourselves. We then turned out the fire, me and Hannah going into our tent alone, myself seeing Dip enter his with Will already tucked in when I zipped mine up. The night for me went by happily and calmly, the warmness of Hannah next to me and the slight buzz of bugs making my life feel like there was nothing wrong. For Dip, the night was much of the same, with the noises being the same, and Will pushing himself away from Dip. Dip then felt something, an object laid upon his leg, striking him. He looked down, seeing Will's foot for a second before it retreated. He kept watching, the other leg now striking Dip. "Hey," Dip said out loud, hoping to stop whatever little run in his sleep dance Will was doing. "Stop, don't come," Will said groggily. Dip now reached out his hand, laying it on Will's shoulder and gently rocking him, hoping to get him back to sleep. For a second, it worked. Then Will instantly swiped at his hand and stood up, his head hitting the top of the mesh ceiling. Will now panted, seeing Dip, who was concerned for him, saying, "Calm down, you're okay." "No," Will said, shaking his head. "Something's different. Something's here. I don't know how they slept the rest of the night. Dip really only told me that first half and failed to disclose the second. He told me this early, saying, 'Nick, we gotta talk for a second.' Then leading me away from me and Hannah, who sat around the now extinguished fire. On our separate conversation, he asked me, 'Has Will talked about experiencing anything with you lately? He seemed spooked last night.' I could only tell him what I knew, which was nothing, noting to him that I would keep an eye on him during the hike we planned for the day. Dip replied to that, 'Thank you, and if he needs something, let me know. Also, big bug get to you.' Then chuckling, poking at his own neck on the left side. I did the same motion on my own neck, feeling the raised skin, knowing Hannah had left that hickey from last night. I then went to my own tent, digging into my own bag and pulling out the journal, still absent of anything new. I put it back, grabbing the bug spray and handing it around, ensuring everyone got sprayed before we began our hike. The hike lasted for around 2 hours, with some hilly and rocky terrain, but nothing we couldn't handle. The plus side of it, too, was that trees covered the trail, so only minimal bits of the hot sun could hit us. We still returned drenched in sweat, myself blaming the humidity of the area. Me, Hannah, and Will decided it would be best to cool down in the lake. Dip saying, "I'll go get some firewood. I am thinking hot dogs tonight." A few minutes later, he left the campsite, myself being splashed by Will. He drove to the nearby building about a mile down from the campsite. It was a small brick building, which I think held restrooms and was the only permanent building within a 4-mile radius. On the side was a metal container, with the electronics to open once you slipped money in, like a wood vending machine. Dip parked his car right in front of it, himself being alone as he walked up to the machine. He slid a $5 bill into the electronic machine, then the lock popping with a mechanical click, and Dip pushing the gate open, grabbing a bundle inside. Amazing how far Earth technology has progressed. A voice then said from beyond the corner of the building. Dip walked over, seeing a slender masculine figure leaned up against the brick, dressed in a black and white suit, his slender white hands cupped in front of his mouth, now putting them down, revealing the black cigarette that had been lit. "Yeah, real interesting. A machine can lock and unlock something," Dip replied. The figure then moved his head, staring at Dip as he responded, "Much more advanced than the last time I was here." What are you?" Dip now said, a slight panic in his voice. "Who are you here with, Dip? Before I answer your questions, you must be nice and answer mine." The figure went. "I'm with my kids," Dip said confidently. The figure chuckled. "If we are to lie, then I will lie. I'm just another human, out here enjoying my day." "What do you want with them?" Dip said. "Not them, him. The one you spend your time with that doesn't belong. I think you know who that is." The figure said, now pushing against the brick and moving his body, directly facing Dip now. At this position, Dip could see the figure better, a nearly ghost-white skin tone, dressed in a faintly stripped suit with small, amber-lighted buttons. The figure then walked closer to Dip, its expression reminding him of a wolf hunting prey. Dip then tossed the firewood bundle from his hand in front of the figure, landing in its path. The figure leaned over, picking it up as Dip watched the oak wood start to charcoal in the figure's hand, turning to a black only the night could match. It now stood in front of him, Dip slightly looking up at the figure to make eye contact. "I know you know." The figure went then stepping back, also letting go of the firewood, and it dropped between them. Dip buckled down, picking up the piece and seeing the fingers outlined from the figure burned into parts of the wood. When Dip looked up, the figure was gone of range in the open field he was in, knowing the figure couldn't have hid behind the building. "Son of a bitch," Dip muttered under his breath, now walking back to the car and tossing in the firewood. Dip returned to the campsite, myself beating him by about 2 minutes as Hannah and Will continued to swim for as long as the sun allowed them. I looked at the firewood, noticing the scorched marks on it, asking Dip, "Did we get pre-owned firewood? You must have gotten a steal on it." Dip chuckled, then replying to me, "Let's just enjoy our trip and not worry about the wood for now." The water glistened as he laughed, replaying the joke in his head, then laughing again. And then I said, "You aren't a bull, you're the whole damn rodeo." The 3 other men laughed even harder, not even noticing the line be pulled. They continued to laugh, the pole which the line stemmed from now curving, drawing the attention of one of the men. "Catfish on," he went. "This one looks heavy," he mentioned, jerking the pole up and hoping to hook into the fish's mouth. He felt it tug, then another, then another. He jolted forward, the fish swimming out farther to the middle of the lake, pulling the man behind the rod. He let go, seeing the pole get lost into the lake, his body tumbling forward, then slipping and falling into the water. He emerged a moment later, a splash from his friend's drink greeting him as he breathed in the lake water. "Got mugged by a fish, buddy," one of the friends said to him. "I swear it's not a woman. Don't swim after her." another friend joked. He drove down the road, possibly the 1,000th time in his career. Enough to the point that even at 2 a.m. while half asleep, his body could navigate the turns around the park effortlessly. However, his reaction time wasn't fast enough for when something came unexpected. He slammed on the brakes, knowing it was already too late, and watched as the trash can bounced off his front bumper, now rolling to the other side of the street. He now looked over, seeing the other trash cans topple down like a chess king now defeated. He then looked more closely, the bags inside being ripped open, exposing the scraps of food camp attendees had left. "Damn raccoons," the security guard muttered, now getting out of the vehicle, grabbing the trash can he had hit and moving it to the rest of the group. "Maintenance can bag these up in the morning," he said to only himself, then exclaiming to the raccoons, which he knew to be nearby, "You happy, you filthy animals. Your food is yours tonight." Then turning around. At the moment he could hear it, the sound of wet flip-flops running on concrete. He turned around, the sound now stopping, expression of confusion on his face, but one where he knew he wasn't paid enough to deal with the situation. He returned back to the Camp Ranger vehicle, making sure the road was cleared and started to drive again, going back to being half asleep. "Seems like a pretty wild night," I told Dip as he sipped the coffee he had just retrieved. "Enough for the morning rangers to be talking about it at the shop. Nice people, though. There's a saying from around here that the Midwest have the nicest people." "I think that's becoming more truthful," Dip replied to my statement. "When are we going swimming? It's getting hot." Will groaned to the group, the sun now directly above us. "Let's go now, enjoy the day," Dip then said, getting up from around the fire pit and going to the car. We drove to a larger lake, one with a wider beach and much cooler water from the fact that it was 100 feet deeper than what we had camped in front of. We enjoyed the cooler waters till nighttime, with the most exciting moment coming from watching a giant bass, at least 3 feet in length, jump from the water and then splash right back in. This feat immediately led to Will asking, "Why do fish jump out of the water? They can't breathe, right?" "Yeah," I answered. "They do it for multiple reasons: to catch prey, attract a mate, for the fun of it, or escape a predator." Will smiled, making the comment, "Looks like he had fun while jumping. Let's go with that." We called it a night hours later, myself and Hannah staying up later than normal, keeping our lips occupied and awake. We then heard something loud enough for at least my best moments alive to grab my attention, and slowly unzipped the tent. I then peeped my head outside, showing Hannah how much of a man I was, hoping nothing would happen. I then saw it, a small creature, not much taller than a raccoon over by our shoes. "Hey, get away from that," I said to the almost lizard-like creature. It was dark, really tough to see. This provoked Hannah to move her head out, seeing the creature then open its mouth wide like an alligator, almost assuring it was a reptile thing, grabbing Hannah's sneaker in, its mouth then running off. "Hey," Hannah called to the creature, then getting out of the tent and chasing after the creature, which went down the paved road. She continued to chase at my call of, "Hannah, wait," to her barely being recognized. I then went to Dip's and Will's tent, slamming on the fabric, spooking them as Dip said, "I will shoot you if I don't know you." I yelled to him, "Something took our stuff. Hannah chased it." That sentence got Dip's attention, pulling him out of the tent, then pulling Will and forcing him to follow him down the road. We caught up to Hannah moments later, her screaming for help, alerting us to her location. We found her in the bottom of the roadside ditch, covered by the tall grass and the fat alligator on top of her, the creature's tail waving. Without hesitation, Dip pulled in front, sliding down the 3-foot hill into the ditch and slamming his foot into the creature's side. The creature rolled off, then snarled at Dip. I watched from afar as it turned into the woods, disappearing into the green foliage. I then went down into the ditch, comforting a now crying Hannah who gripped onto me. She did that on the entire way back to the campsite, now sitting inside the car with me, refusing to go back to the tent. What was that thing? She asked me softly, unable to sleep. I don't know. I really don't know, I replied back. It wasn't from this planet. It was an alien. Do I sound crazy? She then said. No, not at all. I just wish these things didn't happen, I responded. We didn't sleep the rest of the night, leaving early the next morning after Dip packed everything up. Before leaving, Dip made sure to tell the park rangers about the night's incident, taking it as coyote attack, which made Hannah upset but didn't want to correct Dip. To be fair, I think in her mind the best way to explain this was a coyote. We arrived to our trailer home 3 hours later, myself saying goodbye to Hannah before she drove herself home and making plans to get food the next day, then heading inside. Check the book. Dip said to me once Hannah was 100 meters down the road. I opened the journal, flipping to the back pages and seeing the reptilian creature with its round mouth open, hundreds of small razor teeth enclosed. Ichis, Will said upon seeing it. What? Dip asked him. Ichis, I don't know the full name, but they stayed near the riverbanks in my home world. A lot like the Florida reptiles, alligators, right? Will explained. Yeah, alligators. Okay, so 2 incidents, I said to the group. 3, Dip corrected. What do you mean 3? I asked him. Flip the page, he's in there. Dip replied to me. I flipped the page, seeing a human in a nice dress suit. Who's this? I asked him. I didn't get a name, but I saw him while getting firewood. He's the one that burned it, Dip said to the group. And what did he want? I asked him. Dip dipped down his head, then looking around him, staring at Will at the end of the trailer. Him,